Have you ever noticed something strange? The moment you finally start prioritizing yourself, saying no, setting boundaries, or protecting your time, you suddenly feel guilty, almost like you're doing something wrong, even though logically, you know you're not. Why does choosing yourself sometimes feel like betraying everyone else? The answer isn't selfishness. It's actually a psychological pattern your brain learned years ago. And once you understand it, that guilt starts losing its power. But here's the surprising part. Most people who struggle with this guilt are actually the most empathetic and caring people. So why does the brain punish them the moment they prioritize themselves? Let's break it down. Psychologists who study boundaries, people-pleasing, and emotional conditioning have discovered something fascinating. Guilt around self-care usually isn't about morality. It's about learned psychological programming. And once you see the pattern, you'll start recognizing it everywhere in your life. Your brain was trained to earn approval. Many people grow up learning a very subtle rule. Your worth depends on how useful you are to others. Maybe you were the responsible child, the peacemaker, the one who solved everyone's problems, and when you helped others, you received approval. Praise, love, validation. Your brain quietly formed a connection, helping others stack acceptance. But there was another hidden message beneath that. Your needs came second. Over time, your brain developed something psychologists call people-pleasing conditioning. Your identity became linked to being the one who always shows up, always sacrifices, always says yes. So when you finally decide to prioritize yourself, your brain reacts with guilt, not because you're wrong, but because you're breaking a pattern your mind believes keeps you socially safe. And here's the twist most people never realize. The guilt you're feeling isn't actually about hurting people. It's about fear of losing approval. But that's only the first layer, because there's another psychological mechanism that makes the guilt even stronger, and it has to do with something called emotional conditioning. Your brain confuses self-care with selfishness. Your brain is incredibly good at learning patterns, especially emotional ones. If you spent years being rewarded for self-sacrifice, your mind starts associating that behavior with being a good person. Meanwhile, prioritizing yourself might have been labeled as something else. Selfish, difficult, uncooperative. Even if nobody explicitly said those words, your brain absorbed the message. So now something interesting happens. The moment you say, "I can't help today. I need time for myself. I'm setting a boundary," your brain triggers an emotional alarm. That alarm is guilt. Psychologically, guilt acts like a social protection system. It's designed to stop behaviors that might threaten relationships. But here's the problem. Your brain doesn't always update its rules. It's still operating on old emotional programming that may have been formed years ago. In other words, your mind is trying to protect relationships that might not actually require that level of sacrifice anymore. And this leads to a powerful realization. Feeling guilty doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It often means you're breaking an outdated emotional rule. But there's one more psychological reason this guilt feels so intense, and it involves something called identity conflict. By the way, if you enjoy content that breaks down the hidden psychology behind everyday emotions, make sure to like the video. It helps more people discover these ideas. Now, let's talk about the final and most powerful reason. You're changing your identity. For many people, being the one who always helps others becomes more than a habit. It becomes their identity, the reliable one, the supportive one, the selfless one. And identities are powerful. Your brain works very hard to keep your identity consistent. So when you start setting boundaries, something inside your mind reacts. It feels like you're becoming a different person, even if that change is healthy. Psychologists call this identity discomfort. Your mind is adjusting to a new version of you, a version who values their time, protects their energy, and understands that caring about others doesn't mean abandoning yourself. But identity changes always feel uncomfortable at first. Think about it like building a new habit. At the beginning, it feels unnatural. But over time, your brain rewires, the guilt fades, and something surprising happens. People who truly respect you start respecting your boundaries too. Because boundaries don't destroy healthy relationships, they actually improve them. The only relationships that struggle with your boundaries are the ones that benefited from you having none. Now, the final insight. So if you feel guilty when you finally start prioritizing your needs, remember this: that feeling isn't proof that you're selfish. It's proof that you're breaking an old psychological pattern. A pattern your brain once believed was necessary for belonging. But healthy relationships don't require constant sacrifice. And prioritizing yourself isn't selfish. It's emotional maturity. If you want to understand more hidden psychological patterns like this, the ones that silently shape our emotions, relationships, and decisions, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Because once you start understanding how your mind actually works, you stop being controlled by patterns you never chose, and you start rewriting them.